Can QD-OLED be the only thing on the market that makes W OLED look bad, or does W OLED have a fighting chance still in 2025? Smack like on this video, we're going to dive right in. The answer is simple, yes and no. So again, we know that the LG C1 is like one of the most legendary LG TVs ever made. It was like one of a kind. They haven't made a TV since that is like that. So this is why it's my LG reference monitor to use for all comparisons. That being said, we have the TCL QM7K, and we're going to make sure that we're showing you what QD-MINILED can do comparatively. This is a very easy thing to pick out, okay? So essentially to the left on the W OLED, you're going to have a world more in terms of depth. Color will appear darker. So all colors, they're just going to have like this darker, richer appearance. The lack of contrast comparatively is the reason for this. Again, when we talk about the QM7K, it doesn't have the same level of contrast. So you're going to notice the brightness here and all around the general picture with, again, lacking the depth that this has in the background. Again, you look over there, it's almost non-existent by comparison. And again, you do enough of these examples, you'll start to see what I mean. The LG C series just has a way of popping off of the screen, especially when we talk about the C1. Now, there are those who, again, believe that current generations of LG are amazing. I would advise you go watch my LG C1 versus LG G4 video, especially once I got to the gaming section. It became very clear and very apparent which one was better, and it was the LG C1 as far as depth. You also had more options that the newer model omitted and did away with entirely, particularly in game mode. That was the one thing, and particularly in game mode was where I saw you just had just OLED Motion Pro as a toggle versus high or low or different options like that. So less is what you get sometimes. Now go back this frame here and you'll see that W OLED has the benefit of being more blue, and that blue does add a hue, if you will, across all colors that does change how colors interact. Essentially, this is going to always be the more pale of the two images while being the brighter of the two images, and you can kind of see that. Now, when you look at, again, the generalities like orange is going to look better here to the left versus to the right. It's very clear and it's very sharp. And then when you look at, again, sunsets, there's going to be a little bit more pink in the orange here because on LG, especially if you're trying to drive more aggressive color, because it's a W OLED, it adds a little bit way too much in the way of blue. Blue has a habit of making reds look very pink when added. So it doesn't really give that natural orange glow or look. And that's the difference between what the quantum dots are doing versus what the LG is doing. That's not to say that you won't have the colors, but it will just be one of those things that you kind of have to deal with. Now, a benefit of having a lot of blue is that when you look, you can clearly see that there's just going to be a lot of green and cyan green hues, to be specific, like in here, which really help that natural fog come over the horizon the way it's supposed to. Albeit we got to give the TCL some credit because the depth is showing through the way that it should instead of looking poor. Now, when we look at other examples, like again, the skyline, this is where I think it becomes a little bit better for LG because you have a lot more in the way of gradient where the blue is actually helping a lot more. And even though it adds and makes, again, orange look a little bit closer to red, it still does look really nice versus something like that where, again, it's just more pale. And again, you'll go through several examples of skin tonalities and things like that. And the LG is going to have a little bit more of a red push to it. But again, that's because we're using the BT 2020 color space. If we don't use the BT 2020 color space, LG is going to fail miserably. Now, I know there are some AV YouTubers like Vincent Tio over at HDTV Test that advise against completely using any form of BT 2020. It just makes everything overly red. But the argument is kind of weak when you look at what the TV would have looked like without those setups. And I'll show you what that looks like now. Orange tends to start looking towards the yellow side of things, and it really gives a more jaundiced color. The relevancy and importance of me mentioning color, specifically things like orange, is because that's the baseline for skin tones. Orange is one of the most important colors. Orange is where when you darken the shade of orange, you get brown. And that's, again, a very key color for pretty much everything, being the color of ground, gravel, I mean, everything that you could think of, hair. I mean, it's important that it looks appropriate and it looks jaundiced when you use, again, the Rec 709 color space that Vincent Tio advised you use. And if you go that route, this is what skin tones actually look like. They look yellow, they look jaundiced, and this is what every reporter and enthusiast, for whatever reason, I don't know what their malfunction is. I don't know if they have eyes that work properly for color, but this does not look realistic. People aren't green. I've never seen a green person before, unless they're sick, and it's called jaundice, okay? And that's what this really does look like. And they push this like left and right. So if that's your cup of tea, by all means, go for it, but it does not look good. You can see it across multiple examples. I'll go back to the skyline. You'll start to see again. And you'll watch their videos and they'll show you these very unimpressive looking YouTube videos. I'm not in the business of doing that. I'm gonna show you the peak performance and it ain't this. So as you can clearly see, this is what it looks like. So what we're gonna do again, just so you guys can see it in real time, I'm gonna go up. I'm gonna, let's say, select a different picture preset. I personally do tend to go back and forth quite a bit between APS and the cinema mode, and even if you do that, you're still gonna see that it's not that great. It's pretty washed for color. So then you go into the secret menu if you know how LGs work, and you use your magic remote and type in 1113111, and then you don't listen to HDTV test. And in fact, you do go ahead and enable BT 2020. And when you do that, the amount of color throw that you get becomes magical, and the TV looks way better than it ever was going to. It pops and explodes in a way that literally just is not possible without that augment, as you see with this skin tone and orange now no longer looking jaundiced. So yeah, take that for what it is. Now, there are some areas where the LG is particularly weak and particularly strong. So in this example, you are seeing reds look way better than how they actually come out of the box. That's due to the fact that I have used a quantum dot OLED as a reference to push it closer to the quantum dot territory. And you can clearly see it does a great job of getting close to the door. The red still looks slightly orange when you really look at it, but then TCL's orange looks pinkish in nature. So there is that. Skin tone wise, I like what's happening on the LG better because it's more realistic versus the almost orange skin tone that you have. Like it's a greenish orange, kind of, not really that bad, but it's by comparison something that does look a little bit more artificial, less authentic, if you will, than what LG is doing. So for skin tone accuracy, I would have to say it's the LG all day, every day. I mean, look at her skin tone here in this example, and it looks more realistic. Now, the magenta in the background does not look all that good or great. It does struggle with that, and then once you start trying to change or fix that, you run into some errors or inconsistencies that aren't ideal either. So that's where having quantum dot is better, because as you can clearly see, some colors just look dead by a couple of shades, like magenta in the background. That's more vibrant and full of life, but that's a bit more dead by comparison. The blue, of course, on the LG, though, looks absolutely stunning. W OLED's biggest benefit is blue. It's going to always look really, really good, so you don't have to worry with that. And this example really does show the difference in skin tones and just how ugly, generally, the skin tone will look on something like a QD-MINILED. There are people that are going to look at maybe getting a TCL QM7K or an LG C5 or C4 or something W OLED, and this is basically what the difference is going to be between the two. I personally, if I'm being very real with you, would recommend that you probably make either the step up to a higher end QD-MINILED that doesn't have these problems, or you go with the OLED, because OLED is literally giving you a level of depth that you can't replicate very easily on QD-MINILED. Now, in examples like this one, OLED is just way too damn dim, and that's where a lot of people are not going to be pleased. Now, some people will try to opt for the Samsung QD OLED line of televisions. That is a waste of your time, as I've recently done the numbers and tests and everything to show you, you're losing 61% of your picture quality after updates. So Samsung TVs are really, they're beautiful, but only if you keep them offline. But if you like online features, Samsung's not the brand for you. And that's where a lot of people will probably go somewhere else, because who really wants to do that? But when you look at what TCL is offering also from like a budget perspective, say like I have no more money than what I have allotted for the TCL. How much picture quality am I missing? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's definitely a difference, but as far as missing picture quality, I can't really say that you're missing too much because the sharpness is definitely there, exceeding what I'm getting on even the LG and a lot of examples like now as it really hones in on every hair on her face on the TCL, the reflection in the eyes and everything. It's on par for sure. It's just color not really going to be there. As you can clearly see, the color accuracy on LG all day, every day, albeit LG is a little bit more in the way of being dim. The TCL is just not accurate for orange at all. It's way too bright. It's ugly. It's flat. It doesn't have any dimension. And that's where, again, I would say a lot of people are going to be divided, maybe. But for me, it becomes very clear as to which one is the more capable TV. I mean, look how gorgeous now in this example with the teal and orange look that they've pulled off in this example. You can actually see the teal and orange artistic style. Now, that does mean you have to kind of lean a little bit more into the videography side of things to understand how things are filmed and how photos are done and things like that, to know that this is like a teal and orange LUT, if you will. But again, that's one of those things that you'll either pick up with time or trust a professional like myself to tell you, because that ain't gonna give you the teal and orange. That's just blue, and that's not the look they were going for. So LG's accuracy is absolutely spot on and on point with absolutely gorgeous skin quality, beautiful representation of depth and clarity that just destroys anything the TCL could do. Now, the importance of this is this LG C1 you likely can find on eBay right now. You don't have to go spending modern prices if you don't want to get quality sets anymore like people will have you believe. I mean, the LG really just has a way of leaping off the screen at you with the C1. And again, I understand it was an anomaly year, but it is still a W OLED and it is still performing greatly. If we had to pick a winner for this comparison all day, every day, I'd pick the LG C1. Yes, there are moments like now where green and colors in general do look way better on this than they do here, but there's always just that lingering like flatness that I just don't like. Now, not in this example. This is another great stellar example where the TCL is slaughtering the W OLED and the W OLED is falling paces behind. Again, it's not all throughout though, because when you really pay attention, she looks really like ashy black here and really dark and not how she would actually look. And here she has the pigment and she looks red and warm and brown and rich with color too. You know, I feel like they should have done this here, but they're two separate skin tones making her look like two separate people. And I think that's kind of stupid. And again, you're getting an idea as far as the brightness differences, the contrast differences, the color differences. And again, I can't represent everything perfectly, but it does a decent job of showing you more or less what your gains and your losses will be. LG is just going to be really blue. If you don't like blue, you don't like LG, especially because they won't ditch W OLED for the time being. It does give you a boost in colors like cyan, like now, that looks so much better on every level than what we have here outside of the brightness on the TCL QM7 that's better. But again, you're starting to split hairs. Here, they look relatively identical with the warm tones being a lean on, obviously, the QD-MINILED. So if you like warmer TVs, then you're going to like the QD-MINILED a bit more. I mean, hence why we've been talking about the difference between the blues and all that stuff. Again, I really hate the way TCL does skies. They blow everything out. Skies don't look like that. You usually have a very rich color. So that's one of my big gripes with TCL at the moment, but who knows when or how they'll fix it. It really boils down to the fact that both TVs are competent, but again, for the money, I always usually recommend most people go with an OLED anyway, because you're going to have just a stellar experience due to the contrast ratio. And even though you might be afraid of burning, it might be time to take that leap, because even though there are things that get close, like QD-MINILED, QD-MINILED is not OLED. It has no ability to shut off those dark areas of the screen entirely and then render color out of them, which is why you run into examples where they look flat. Now, I'm well aware on camera, this is going to look really, really crushed. The reason for that is because we've approached a contrast ratio and a level of dynamic range most modern cameras truly just can't show you. Their cameras are not going to give you as many what's called stops of light as our eyes can see. We have way more stops that we can see, giving us more higher dynamic range. So you're not going to see everything. And to put it in perspective, this is already being shot in a higher dynamic range format, and you still can't see those shadow details. Like, I can see all the buildings intricately and clearly with my eye, but the cameras just can't pick up on that. So again, keep in mind, cameras also over adjust and boost color. They also go in through even the lenses. The type of lenses you use will add contrast where it's not wanted because it's made for skin and they want you to look good for photos. You have to keep all of this stuff in mind. You are not seeing a one-to-one representation, so use this as more of a visual guide. Try to pick up what you can and see what you can, but essentially it is what it is. That being said though, the win totally goes to the LG C1. It is a stellar picture quality still in 2025. And that says a lot. And I think, the images are truly speaking for themselves. If you want, I will answer as many comments as I can in the questions down below that you may have. Let me know. And as always, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the #1 brand in honesty. And until the next video, I'll see you guys later.